you to our debate on free media and resilient democracies. My name is Anja Wehler-Schöck, and I'm the international editor of the German newspaper Tagesspiel, based in Berlin. It will hardly come as a surprise to you that this topic is not only highly relevant politically, but is also of a deep personal connection to my colleagues and me around the world. Because quality journalism is essential for democratic societies. It's an indispensable mechanism to hold decision makers accountable, and it is crucial for social cohesion. And without access to quality journalism, people are easy prey for disinformation and manipulation. Yet the existence of quality journalism is under threat around the globe. In its most recent edition of the World Press Freedom Index, Reporters Without Borders sees the index at its lowest since its inception. For the first time ever, it classifies the global state of press freedom as a difficult situation. So to discuss these current challenges and its possible solutions, it is my great honor and pleasure to welcome our 5 excellent panelists to the stage: Nicola Careem, Věra, Jourová, Kasia, Kieli, Prokopiev, and Zoltán, Varga. I will, of course, introduce the speakers more in detail as we delve into our discussion. Please welcome them to the stage. So we will start out with a discussion here on the panel, and then you are, of course, invited to ask your questions as well. Věra Jourová, allow me to start with you. Věra Jourová is the vice rector at the Charles University here in Prague, and until last year, she served as the vice president of the European Commission for Values and Transparency. Věra, you once said that your upbringing in former Czechoslovakia has inspired your work to ensure that journalism remains independent. What developments have been of most concern to you with regard to declining media freedom in Europe, both during your tenure at the Commission and since then?
Yeah, thank you very much, and good morning. Thank you for coming. There is a competition next door, so happy to have you here. Well, my experience of half of my life lived in communism not only helped me to start working for the media from the position of the vice president of the Commission, but also for the rule of law principle. And we kind of understood the situation of media when it's worsening. It's also worsening of the broader system. So when I started to work on the Media Freedom Act, which was a concrete product, the Freedom Act, Media Freedom Act will come into force this year on the 2nd of August, I had in mind 4 things. First of all, increased political pressure on media. Second, increased pressure from the side of the digital world. Third, worsening of the security situation of journalists. And fourth, and here I have to say with regret, I didn't manage to solve it, financial distress. Lack of finance, which is making media much weaker and also much easier target for all the other kinds of pressures which I mentioned. So I made an analysis of all these things using also the statistics produced by the Journalists Without Borders and also by the University in Florence, which is every year publishing the Media Pluralism Monitor, where we see that the map of Europe is more and more in dark red color, which is high risk. High risk means existential risk for the media, possible media deserts, places which are not covered, places where the young generation only gets information from TikTok. I could continue. So that's why when I saw this obvious worsening of the situation, I proposed the first ever European media law.
Mm. Kasia, Kieli, turning to you. Kasia Kieli is the president and managing director of Warner Bros. Discovery in Poland. Kasia, in its most recent edition of the World Press Freedom Index, Reporters Without Borders lists economic pressures as a leading threat to press freedom. Věra also mentioned it in her remarks. Your company, Warner Bros. Discovery, announced on Monday that it planned to divide the company into 2 publicly traded entities, also due to economic pressures. Have traditional media become outdated due to the changing consumption patterns? We've also read in the Globsec Trends 2025 that especially young people are mostly receiving their information through social media these days.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, welcome everybody. I'm also very happy you're here. Before I answer the question, I just wanted to give a little bit of a context because you might be wondering why Warner Bros. Poland is here. I just wanted to say that Warner Bros. Is an owner and I am a CEO of the biggest broadcaster in Poland, the biggest independent commercial broadcaster called TVN. And we not only provide entertainment channels, but we're the biggest news provider in the country. We have the biggest news channel and the biggest broadcast news, evening broadcast news program on the main channel that on every basically night gets around 20 to 25% audience share. So we are really a kind of news destination for the country. So now moving to answer your question. Well, yes, the company has announced the split, but this really does not relate that directly into our Polish business. The Polish business, we're lucky because we are a broadcaster at scale. We're the biggest broadcaster. We have big enough scale to be able to be completely financially independent and to finance our news organization. And credible news organization that actually checks what is putting on air, cannot be confused with any social media information, which are coming from anonymous sources, very often bots, unchecked, and does not follow a very, very strict process that we have internally in terms of what we put on air, what kind of responsibility we take for the news that we publish, and we always obviously have a face to it. So there are people that are putting their faces and making sure that their reputation rely on the information they provide. So I do believe that it is a real problem. As I said, we are in a better situation. But also I wanted to say that traditional media is not staying in place and it's not kind of just doing the broadcast, okay? I think that there's so much going on, and specifically in our organization in terms of digital transformation of a broadcast part of the business. So I'm not talking about streaming, but the broadcast, the real broadcast part of the business, including we just launched a new apps and new services, news services, both news services, but also on the entertainment side, and are actually innovating in a broadcast, linear broadcast, also part of the business. So all of that, I think that obviously it's easier for somebody of our size and scale than it is for smaller media outlets.
Thank you. Linking financial and political pressures, Nicola Careem, let me continue with you. Nicola Careem is the Vice President and Editor-in-Chief of Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. She has won numerous awards as a journalist and has pretty much reported on any crisis you can think of. Nicola, we've not only seen attempts at limiting press freedom in Europe, but also in the US under the second Trump administration. President Trump has tried to shutter your organization, but the EU has stepped in and with several $1 billion supported Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. Radio Free Europe played a crucial role during the Cold War in countering Soviet propaganda and influence. What does it mean when a US president tries to close it down during times like these when their efforts would be much needed?
Thank you so much for that introduction. Well, yes, I have covered many crises in my career, but none as big as the crisis that we're facing at RFERL right now. We have enjoyed 75 years of funding from the United States, and what's happening now is really quite a severe existential crisis for us as an organization. In March this year, USAGM terminated our monthly grant, but we are still going. We are still reaching millions of our audiences every day, which is quite an achievement. And the support that we have seen from our colleagues and allies across Europe really goes to show just how many people understand the importance of what we do, and in fact, what will happen if we go dark. We know from previous experience in Africa and other parts of the world that when public service media withdraw, it's not our allies that step in. China and Russia, we know, are spending more than $8 billion a year, a complete fraction of our budget on pumping disinformation and propaganda across our broadcast regions. Our cost, in comparison, is about 0.06 cents per audience member per week. I think all public media are facing a crisis of political pressure, as you mentioned, and that is coming in the form of funding. And I think for most democratic nations, they absolutely understand that a free and fair media, people having access to independent information, is directly linked with healthy democracies. And once democracy starts to erode, that's when stability and security also start to erode. So I don't see funding organizations like ours as a burden. I see it as an investment in security and stability of countries across this region.
Why doesn't this seem to be heard in Washington?
Well, I would like to point out that we have very strong bipartisan support across Congress. We were appropriated our funds by Congress, £142 million for this financial year. It is not Congress who has stopped funding us. This was an executive order that was made through USAGM, which we believe was an illegal move, and we are fighting that in the courts.
Thank you. Ivo Prokopiev, over to you. Ivo Prokopiev is the founder and majority owner of Economedia, which publishes Capital and Dnevnik, two leading quality media brands in Bulgaria. Ivo, Bulgaria is a country where independence and pluralism of the media have eroded steadily over the past few years. You yourself have been the target of harassment and prosecution by your own government. Is quality independent journalism doomed in Bulgaria?
I would say not completely, because actually in the last several years situation has improved marginally, but it can deteriorate back any moment now. So we have increased Bulgarian ranking in the Reporters Without Borders table. I would start my comment with trying to defend media, because media is a very broad category and we understand different things. So several types of media were mentioned here. Madame Jourová, when she was commissioner, this legislation was very relevant. It was targeting protection of editorial interference in essentially public media, government sponsor media.
And finance.
And financing of it. So the other type of media which is different is privately owned media, which is public interest media, news media, or traditional quality media. And this is under the biggest financial and business model distress, because it has survived several waves of disruption already. So 20 years ago, when the internet arrived broadly, I mean, this traditional media, it lost its print revenue stream. Then 5-10 years later, after the big financial crisis, all the advertising went to digital platforms and never came back. After that, we sort of believed that the holy grail of the industry is subscription model. So all of the companies invested tremendous efforts and resources into building this capability, essentially converting the business model into digital companies, and with limited success here and there. But now with the AI, actually, what we see is the third generation of disruption, which AI is going to be a big problem for news media and for the traditional media, because it is challenging the two existing revenue streams. What has remained from the advertising based on inventory and volume, and also the subscription model, because if you have a good professional AI tool, you don't need much of subscription in the paid media. So now the industry is evolving for the last time, I would say, into what is called first data audience, essentially the first party data, the audience that the media organizations has and controls, which it's going to be very, very difficult actually to make this work, because it requires enormous financial and also management capabilities of the media companies. So it's all very complicated. But what's the problem? If this public interest media doesn't survive, the very core of media will be challenged: journalism, news gathering, and news origination. If you will be surprised how minimal is the number of reporters in Eastern Europe. I would say that no more in the whole region than probably 7, 8, maximum 10,000 reporters are acting at the moment as a proper journalist. If there are no reporters on the ground, there is no one to report the news. And what's happened then? Who is reporting the news? The governments and large corporates start to report the news themselves. Whatever technology then you use for analysis, aggregation, whatever, it's if the core, if the origination of the news is faked, I mean, nothing can be done for the public domain and for the public debate. So this is the biggest problem. And if there is an understanding, and the other big problem in the policies that I see is that there is no understanding, there is no proper analysis for the roots of the problem, then we cannot help these small media companies to survive, because Poland is a very big market. I agree that the large organizations, they have the scale and they have the tools to survive. They have the revenue and the free cash flow to reinvest if the business model changes. But in the smaller market with smaller countries, unique languages, actually not much can be done. Not much can be done. So for the small public interest media, there must be, if they serve the public need, I mean, there must be sort of public funding. For the larger ones that have chances to survive on the market basis, they need access to capital, which is also missing. Nobody wants to invest in media these days. And part of the reason is the second element of our discussion, political harassment and political pressure. Because if the governments can originate the news themselves, I mean, they don't have interest of investors in the media domain and in independent journalism of diversity.
Thank you. Zoltán Varga, allow me to continue with you. Zoltán Varga is the CEO and chairman of the Central Media Group, one of the biggest independent media companies in Hungary. And Zoltán, you're in a similar situation. The legislation passed under Viktor Orbán has severely limited the work of independent media. Numerous journalists have left their jobs in recent years because they said they couldn't do their work properly anymore. How has your work been affected by these efforts of the government?
Thank you very much for the invitation. I have to share very much what Ivo said. My life and my colleagues' life actually has already for more than 8 years, actually. And the heat is turning up, and we see existential threat on a daily basis. Unfortunately, Hungary is very good in innovating, actually, how to pressure and kill independent media. And this model is actually exported to many countries. The big problem of what I see, media is not anymore informing the people and making the people's life happier. It's rather used as a political tool. And frankly, as an investor or as someone who is interested in the free and independent media, it's very difficult to be an investor or leading a such organization. I'm personally harassed already for 8 years. I'm under investigation. I was charged a month ago and threatening me with jail, purely because I'm running an independent and owning an independent media. And my colleagues' life is actually on a daily basis are threatened. The Hungarian government proposed a month ago a so-called sovereignty law, which means that if and when we accept foreign money, Google or subscription from abroad, we are called as a foreign agent and we will be labeled. And you can think what happened 50, 60 years, 70 years ago. And frankly, we have to pay a fine 25 times of the received money. So in our case, 3 million euro Google revenue times, so we are dead. So basically, it will be more than 70 million euro just to pay us a fine. Basically, we are dead. So the threat is, I'm not 100% sure that it will happen, but the threat is above us, and they can use it anytime. So, frankly, my biggest concern: who is going to run? Who is going to own those entities? And we see that the real threat right now is coming from AI, because we don't need so many journalists, but someone has to gather the real information, and this has to be human. So frankly, we are racing with business models which are beating us, definitely, and we would like to do independent media without financial support, and even without support from any organization, because we are under a national government, and the EU cannot help us, which is absolutely true, because we are under a national government. So I don't see the way how it can be solved. There are good examples like Pluralis and some private investors, like Warner was keeping the light actually open, so they've done a great job. But those are specific cases, and we need a broader spectrum, and we need a broader protection.
Věra, Zoltán said the EU cannot help us, and the picture so far is pretty gloomy. You already alluded to a number of initiatives that the Commission and the Parliament are proposing and starting to secure media freedom in Europe. Can this really turn around this trend?
We will probably see a new budget in the new multi-annual budget for the years 28 plus, some envelope for the media. I cannot say how much. By the way, I am not there anymore, but I am just listening to some unofficial messages. But I was never 100% convinced that it should be taxpayers to pay.
I agree, by the way.
The taxpayers should pay the public service media as a truly public service, and better by fees than by budget, because the national budget is always a pretext for political pressure. But why don't we do more to bring the money back where it disappeared? And it's the digital sphere, it's the AI business now. And I know that under this geopolitical situation and difficult negotiations with the United States in the trade field, maybe it's not the proper moment to start speaking seriously about digital tax. But we keep speaking about it already several years. And nothing is happening, and hereby I swear I really tried hard, and I produced a lot of enemies because of that. Or if not tax, then in case we will collect some sanctions through the Digital Services Act and Digital Markets Act, why should this money disappear just in the budget? Which that goes to cement and asphalt, I don't know, these kind of investments. Why don't we have a system when this money goes where the damage has been done by the big digital business? And the damage is the lack of money for media, the lack of preparedness of the society, in other words, gaps in education for the media and digital literacy, security issues, because we have a lot of severe digital crime which is turning against the people, and the states have to invest more and more in guaranteeing security of people. So it would be my proposal not to just look at the public money. In Czechia, we are starting now an initiative of collecting really rich people who could create the fund to keep Czech media alive. It's at the beginning. And I think that this is the way is to combine these things. Public money for public service media, private money, increase the trust of investors that it's worth investing, and the third, really, I would look at where the money disappeared, and it's the advertisers' money went 70-80% to Google and others. You gave me the floor. It was a big mistake.
I would like to hear others react to what you just said.
I will be short, but look, we are at the GlobSec conference, 2,500 participants. We heard from President Pavel and President Zelensky that Europe appears in the war, at least in information war. Europe appears in the situation when Russia is the big donor or investor in this war against Europe, not only in European territory, but also in Africa and Latin America. United States are resigning on their role of the leader of the free democratic world. What Europe should do in this situation, to give the Radio Free Europe 5.5 million euro to survive the next 3 months. Thank you, European Commission, for this money. But it's not systemic, it's not sustainable solution. And if really we want to be winning, which is also the title of this conference, there should be a very responsible and deep discussion about a systemic measure, how to keep alive media in the third world, in the neighboring country, not to spread European Union propaganda.
Yeah, and I think we'll go there. We're only at the beginning of Globtech, so you listed some very interesting suggestions. Kasia, I would like to hear your thoughts. Věra suggested a digital tax, sanctions, and Ivo said media is no longer interesting for investors. What is your take on that?
Well, if I can just refer to what Věra just said, I wanted to say that I do agree that public money should not be going into financing maybe media, but I also think that there's a massive challenge with public money going financing public media. And we face that in Poland. We face that in Poland because the public money has been used for the party propaganda when the public media was taken over by one party. And that was a huge problem, and the amount of money that was being spent on the so-called public media at that moment, at that time, thankfully we moved away from that time, but from that time has been enormous. Just to give you an idea, it was bigger than commercial budget for both commercial players in Poland, both programming budgets, that more money was being spent on the propaganda channels. So I think that there is a challenge there, and that's my experience when we were under a lot of political pressure as well. In Poland. So I think that there are two pressures here, because we're talking about the political pressure, and we're also talking about big tech, and we're talking about AI, and we're talking about internet, social media, and so on, so on. And I think that both of them are very, very severe. But in terms of, I honestly believe that being here at the Security Forum, independent media really is about security as well. Look, in Poland, when anything happens, and I know that a lot of young people are looking into, whatever, social media information, but if anything happens, people turn to TVN. People turn to watch our channels, and our channels gather 35% of the audience share at those moments, and people turn to watch what's going on. Why? Because we are credible, because they know that they can, we have a very high trust level. They know that they can trust the information, that this information was checked. But we also take a huge responsibility in those moments on us, yes? We take responsibility also of making sure that we are socially responsible to keep certain order. And we're not going to create things that are untrue or will create panics or anything you can think in the situation, like, when the war broke in Ukraine and so on and so on. So I think that, this is really in the security interest, to make sure that those big outlets that are reliable, that are actually having processes and compliances and fact checking, have enough of the power, financial power to survive. And I honestly believe that it's not going to happen unless we look really seriously at the relationship with the big tech, and it's helped by the governments and it's helped by the European Union through regulation. Because it's not about asking them for charity. It's not charity. They're actually using our information, our journalists, our know-how, and it costs money to produce news like that, okay? It's not cheap. It's not like we can do it with, a phone. Somebody's going to stand with the phone and do a reel. It's not how it works. It really costs money, and if we don't get properly remunerated for that information that they're using, that obviously, I think, causes a security issue.
Ivo, I'd like to have a quick look at the tech question with you, because there is a big discussion about content. OpenAI has been asking to use content produced by quality news outlets and basically threatened if you don't allow this access, our content will be dominated by China and Russia. Where is the solution in that?
I mean, there is no simple answer to that, because we see two models. So Axel Springer, because they have the scale, they did pretty good deal with ChatGPT. Our policy is to keep the content, to close the content, because we will try to develop our first-party data business model. But we lose relevance. So we see that the fake news providers are now quoted by ChatGPT if you ask a specific question. So that's back to the discussion for the priorities. I think I checked how much a French milk cow receives in direct and indirect subsidies a year. So it's about €1,000 subsidy for a single French milk cow, and they have more than 3 million in France. So it's a vast amount of money. So I also checked how much money European Union spends on news media, because when we see media headlines, and it's not against Madame Jourová, by the way, she was very helpful.
I am vigilant.
You're on our side. But I mean, just first of all, we can't find which commissioner is in charge for media, right? There is no media mandate among the commissioners. Media is not mentioned. I checked. So for the money, there is different and very broad media definition in the spendings, but if you go deep, the budget for the news media is approximately 50-60 million euro, which is negligible amount. And I would say that using Russian gas and Russian oil is less risky than being unarmed against the Russian troll factories in Northern Macedonia. There are several cities in Northern Macedonia which flourish from these investments. There are thousands of trolls. And this is not the only problem. I mean, every political party now in Eastern Europe has its own troll division. And the number of trolls in the political parties is times bigger than the number of journalists. And this cannot last forever. I mean, there are several survivors which they are now coming to age. They want to retire, 50, 60 years old people. The money is not there, so the pay packages are not attractive for the newcomers, for the youngsters to come. The talent is scarce. So I'm not saying the government or the European government shall sponsor the public interest media. No, I'm also the thinking that it has to be blended structure. And here pluralis experience is good, by the way, because we manage in the capital of single entity to blend private investments with money from foundations, grants, and this actually gives the necessary cushion for making non-attractive investment, because there is no attractive investment in public service media at the moment. But that's probably the way to go.
Zoltán, in this battle for survival, how can journalists, how can media outlets maintain their editorial integrity?
Just one number to the previous conversations. You mentioned China and Russia spending 8 billion yearly. We heard 50 million from the European Union. The Hungarian government alone is spending 1.2 billion euro on propaganda. 1.2 billion. This is 0.6% of the budget. It's a huge number. How can you compete with these numbers? So it's basically impossible. The second, we just discussed Google. So right now, what we face that when someone is typing into Google, he will receive Gemini, he will receive a summary, not links. So the revenue from the links will disappear very quickly. So one pillar from our revenue will totally disappear. But they're using our content, our money, actually. So that's where I totally agree. We have to fight with the big techs, because they are taking our money and our job away. And how can I motivate? So right now we checked, and we are in the process to use more and more AI. With AI to write an article properly, check with the editor, upload it, takes 3 minutes. Normally, with the journalists, it takes 1.5 hours. So how can we compete? So frankly, this is very, very difficult. And honestly, I believe the solution is brand awareness, and very strong, reliable brands. When the people know this is the news TVN, I'm going to watch it. In our case, 24.hu, I'm going to read it. And then we have to find a business model. It's a kind of crowd subscription and advertisement, so it's a mixed structure. We can survive. We are still very profitable without having any state money, but it has to be very rational, profit-oriented, and using the latest technology in order to fight with the big techs. Otherwise, we will not survive.
Nicola, I'd like to come back to you, and then I'd like to open the floor for your questions. So if you have one, raise your hand. Nicola, you've worked as a reporter around the world for many, many years. Coming back to those who produce quality journalism on the ground, how can we protect journalists on the ground when they face multiple threats, be it security, political, or financial and economic pressures?
Sure. Firstly, if I may, I'd just like to come back to some of the discussion on funding. And I have a slightly different perspective in the importance of taxpayers' money funding public service media, at least in part. And the reason for that is that it offers us many protections, because we are custodians of public service. We work not for any one individual political entity or private investor. We work on behalf of the public, and that means that we produce news that is of interest to all groups and demographics across society. That's very, very important. We're also protected. Most public service media like us, the BBC, Deutsche Welle, our independence is protected in legislation. And what I worry so much about the future of media and the need to diversify income sources is there will be a quid pro quo involved in that somewhere along the line. What we need to do in public service media is start winning the narrative, because people who are attempting to silence us have been very good at pushing a narrative that we are wasteful, inefficient, pushing a globalist agenda. We are enemies of the people. And unfortunately, those narratives have been more successful in our ability to prove our worth to people. We know, for example, that the BBC license fee or the money that goes into Radio Free Europe is a mere fraction of what people are paying for subscriptions with Sky News, for example. So we offer great value to the general public. And I do think that there is still a place for that funding model in the future.
Can I just dive in there? Because we have a question via Slido. You said we need to win the narrative.
Yes.
And the question asks, how can we make sure that we fight misinformation from Russia and while preserving freedom of speech?
I think, again, I would agree with what Ivo said, that trust is everything. And in this fragmented media world that we are faced with right now, people simply do not know where they can get trusted information from. We know that trust in the media is the lowest that it ever has been. So it's incredibly important for us to stick to our very high editorial standards, to make sure that the public understand that we're presenting independent, fact-based information, and they will keep coming to us at the big moments when it matters, even if they go somewhere else first. What we have to be better at, though, is building daily habitual relationships with our audiences and not just relying on them to come to us for the big moments.
Thank you. So if you have a question that you would like to ask one of our panelists, please raise your hands. Yeah, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Is there a microphone? Yes.
Thank you. Anton Chekhov, South Central European University. I have a question on social media. I know that you're not directly linked to social media, but these days I think it has been already accepted as a mistake the EU's dependence on the US for security and defense. But at the same time, in the social media, the EU is very much dependent on the social media run by American oligarchs. So my question is, although I know, again, that you're not directly linked to this, is this a time for the EU to have its own social media platform that would fit in the guiding principles of the DSA, for example, of the European Union, and not be dependent on the oligarchs which have no interest in the public good and are only interested in profit? Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to answer? Yes, please.
I wouldn't call them oligarchs because maybe one of them is, but generally they are not. They are successful investors, successful.
They are not.
Who's the oligarch?
American.
Yeah.
Come from different parts of the world.
Yeah. I mean, not all of the successful platform owners are oligarchs. I mean, this is my point. And it's the core of the problem is disintermediation. So it's not media. It's just another thing which uses the end product of media, of news origination, and allows different functionalities. So I have two ideas in this respect. It's too late for a European platform, but Europe can tax it. It's very fashionable now. Duties, taxes, so Europe can tax it and redistribute part of this platform tax back to the journalists. I mean, this is my second most. It's not, I mean, the support has to be directly targeting the journalists. I mean, it has to be back prestigious and attractive financially to work as a journalist, because this job description is going to disappear, and then we are in big trouble.
I would
Yes, Věra, briefly. Kasia,
I think it's the consumers. It's too late for any platforms because we cannot force this type of regulations. It's in China, it's possible, but I guess not in the European perspective. Users are using what they're using, and it's just about what kind of information they get. And this is something that I think needs to be regulated and thought through. How is that being used, and how later on the organizations, sometimes as journalists, sometimes when you provide the news like we do, it's
organization.
It's a teamwork. Yes, it's not just one journalist writing an article. It's a teamwork. You don't have a news unless you have a cameraman, you have an editor. It's a whole team that is doing that. But it's how this money comes back to the source.
Yeah, I believe this is a good moment for European businesses to start working on some networks. I don't think it's the work for the politicians to help it or to finance it. Again, it's my position. Who would follow such network or such social platform, which would be just the platform for the political opinions of some political party? Or can you imagine that? I have a lot of criticism for social media and social platforms, but it's still free democratic space and space for opinions. So I believe that there will be initiatives coming from the private sector. Sometimes it happens to me that some want to consult with me and understand the European aspect. But there was a question about the freedom of speech, what to do. I think that now it's the moment to say clearly that the AI must not be protected by the right of the freedom of speech. And whenever I say it, people are surprised. But the freedom of speech is a fantastic achievement for human beings. Only. If we give it to the bots, then Russia will not have to invest in thousands of trolls. They will just invest in the machine which will totally devastate our information space and our trust in whatever information.
Zoltán, what could a proper regulation for AI look like, and how can we reestablish the trust that we seem to have lost?
I think this is a question
Briefly, in a nutshell.
for European politicians. Frankly, we cannot avoid AI. We cannot avoid regulating it. How to do it? I totally agree that the freedom of speech is important, but for humans. but everyone in the business will use AI because it's very efficient. So the private enterprises are determined to make money. So if they can use AI, they will. How to keep the journalist actually as a proper job? Currently, being a journalist is not sexy. It's not very well paid. They lost actually the credibility in the society. Somehow we have to prove that those people are very valuable and they are kind of lead models. So we have to make this job, again, very attractive. So that's where I would start actually, because for us to hire a new journalist or someone is extremely difficult. It's not sexy anymore. So people are joining tech companies or something else, but working in the media, it's not good anymore. So I would rather start from the other side, make it attractive again.
Nicola, a final word on those who make quality journalism, the journalists. How can we make sure that this profession remains and gets even more attractive, and that we make sure that journalists can work in a secure environment?
Sure. Well, there is one major thing that AI can't do that journalists can, and that is bear witness. And being on the ground day in, day out, having access to the world around them, bearing witness on the front lines of conflicts across Europe remains so incredibly important. I also think, just quickly, I would like to point out how AI is feeding into the information, the disinformation and misinformation space. Just recently, Governor Newsom put 2 pictures up on his social media account of US troops lying on the floor in California. Both ChatGPT and Grok examined those pictures and claimed that they came from 2021 in Afghanistan, which was indeed completely wrong. And that disinformation spread far faster than the truth. So again, we need to distinguish ourselves from AI by being on the ground, bearing witness, and having true expertise in the areas that we're reporting on. And we need to understand the importance of trust. Audiences need to know that when they come to us, they're coming to receive journalism that's created by human beings. And that's really important.
Thank you so much, and thank you all so much for joining us for this discussion. I don't think we were able to provide all the answers today, but it is a discussion that we will certainly continue throughout the years. And thank you very much. If you want to support quality journalism, you can do your part by taking out a subscription to your favorite quality news outlet today. And please stay tuned, because we're continuing on this floor with a next discussion right away on the digitalization of European defense. Thank you very much.